And we have returned. You're listening to CSC Talk Radio. When we went to the break, Melody, I was kind of throwing a little teaser out there. But on Kennedy, and of course she's a libertarian, but on Kennedy last night, one of them on her panel, they were talking about the economy, and they were talking about the interest rates and the control of the Federal Reserve. And the one guy on the panel, he mentioned, he goes, well, there is talk about going back to the gold standard. And, of course, she got all excited about that because she's been looking forward to that for a long time. But what they said is if that would happen, if they would go back to the gold standard, that would just tie the hands and it would render the Federal Reserve irrelevant and insignificant. And so just the fact that they even mentioned it, I thought was fun. Anyway, whether anything gets done, I thought it was fun.
Well, I don't know if, fun.
Encouraging, maybe I should say, well, it's true that we need to do that.
We need to do that. That's exactly what needs to be done in any type of discussion and so forth, because I'll tell you what, it's not going to be long until there is going to have to be a decision made. And that decision will be made if we're going to be going back to some sort of a currency-backed gold, or are we going to continue this fiat currency path? They're not going to have a choice. They're not going to have a choice in the future, but they will have a choice. It's a matter of whether they choose the right one.
Let me ask a question.
Mm-hmm.
Who makes that decision? Will that decision be done in the House of Representatives? Or will that be Congress as a whole? Will it go through the House and the Senate? Or will it be the president? Who makes that decision? I know that there's a bill out there. We've talked about that before, and I'm sure it's still sitting there in a stack that, gets put down on priority list. And, of course, you don't hear this on just the Fox News side. This was on the Fox Business side. Every now and then they talk about it, especially Kennedy, but she was not the one who brought it up. It was somebody else on her panel that actually brought it up. And so that was encouraging that they're at least talking about it and mentioning it on such a night as the election night. But does it come from the House? Is the bill in the House? Is the bill in the Senate? Where is that bill? Do you recall where that one is?
I do believe, there was somebody was trying to do something, and I should follow up on it in West Virginia to be, in fact, that they actually put together some sort of a legislative bill or something in order to do just that. Monetary policy in the United States is the Federal Reserve, and it's their job supposedly to promote maximum employment, moderate the rates, the interest rates, but it's also Congress.
Right.
Congress is supposed to instruct what the Federal Reserve should pursue. So, and in today's world of the presidential, what term am I trying to think of? I was up late too because I was so excited that old Claire lost her position.
Oh yes, we were hooping and hollering. I had a son he sent me a text. He said the Wicked Witch is gone. Sorry, Claire, but you haven't been a fan.
Anyway, I'm thinking of an executive order. As those are being thrown around, I'm not sure, how it would happen. I think just like we saw in the
well, let's back up.
In 2008, you saw, a lot of. They brought in special people from various areas, and it was a combination of the Federal Reserve getting instructions, from Congress. So
let's back it up. When it was removed, who was it that removed it? I know Nixon made the final call, but it was
the window. Yeah,
it was before then. So who removed it? I guess it would have to be Congress. So it'd probably be a bill in the House that then went to the Senate and da-da-da-da-da. So it'd have to be all of them. But the House does control the purse. And right now the majority of the House is going to be the Democrats. And I'm not sure that they're going to be for that. So I'm thinking how's it going to get done? Unless some of those Democrats were truly moderates.
How much coffee had you had?
Quite a bit this morning. Sorry about that.
Well, no, that's okay. No, that's okay because you're absolutely correct. And I think also, but you have to remember, if we're in a position, and you see, if we go back to 2008 and 9 and 10, when we were close at that point in time of the dollar falling out of bed and possibly being replaced by either another currency or something else, at that point in time, I mean, everybody was willing to do anything in order to keep it from happening. So I think you'd see the same thing again. They're not going to be sticking up for their sour points just to make a point when you have a collapse of the monetary system. We're just not talking about the United States anymore. We're talking about globally, because we're all interconnected now. So, they weaved this web of stimulus into these economies, with all these fiat dollars in order to obtain that goal and to keep these economies going, so it didn't collapse previously. So, we're all in it together, and all these central banks all control monetary policy for all these governments, and they're all between a rock and a hard place. So they're going to be darned if they do and darned if they don't.
It was my understanding here a couple of weeks ago when the Federal Reserve raised the interest rates that the president wasn't very happy with them.
Of course not. It's going to drag on the economy because, again, people can't afford the housing. If they can't afford the housing, they're not going to be buying all the things that go into new homes. And so it will put a damper on it. Also, what no one talks about, we talk about the consumer, because the government, our country, our economy is based on over 70% of consumerism. Hey, we like to buy things. However, it also makes servicing the debt more expensive, and that's what they can't afford.
Right. Well, I don't
not
see
just
the debt
government
going away.
debt, but corporate debt also. So you're having it's servicing the debt is what they can't, because you have taxpayers out there paying record revenue to the government, and there's still deficits. Yeah. And the only thing that's going to fix the deficit problem is by raising taxes. There was no 2.0 tax cut. They can't do it. And that's what people don't understand.
It's kind of like some of this other stuff when we vote on some of these propositions and such that are on the ballots. Not candidates, but the propositions and things where they, like in Missouri, they wanted to have a gas tax. And I think it passed, didn't it? Or did it not? No, it did not pass. It failed. But when they say this money will be allocated for such and such, that just means they're going to move money around from somewhere else for such and such. And, for instance, in Missouri, and I'm sure this is probably in some of the other states too, the lottery money. Oh, we got to do the lottery because that's going to improve education. Well, it did. Some of the money does go to education, but where the education was getting money before got cut off. So it's just, they just kind of mix it up and move it around, and it's, like a magician's pulling a rabbit out of his hat. And I think that's what some of that has done. Some people have seen increases in their wages, or not in their wages, on their paycheck because of the tax cut. But it really hasn't.
It's not enough to sustain.
No, it's not. But yet the Democrats didn't like it, and they want it back. They called it crumbs, but they want it back. So that's one thing they want to reverse, so to speak, is those tax cuts. They want to go back to what they had and more. They've already promised they're going to increase taxes. That's why it's so confusing to me that people would vote for the Democrats when they say that's what they're going to do. I mean, they didn't lie in that respect. They were talking about raising taxes. And Pelosi's speech, one phrase that she used, I thought, I agree with this, but she doesn't mean it. They only mean it one direction. But she was saying that in her speech, today is more than about Democrats and Republicans. It's about restoring the Constitution's checks and balances to the Trump administration. It's about stopping the GOP and Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell's assault on Medicare, Medicaid, and Affordable Care Act, and the health care of 130 million Americans living in pre-existing medical conditions. Then she also says, which is the opposite of what she just said, our founders believed in a principle that they knew must guide our nation. First, in our Declaration, they promised life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, but they gave us guidance, e pluribus unum, from many one. Well, that from many one doesn't mean what she was saying up here. We're going to stop the GOP. We're going to quit this, and we're going to do that. It sounded more like some obstruction to me, not being one. And of course, I get so aggravated at the labels that the politicians, GOP as well as the Dems, labeling the people, whether it's race, gender, lifestyle, occupation, or where you live. Hear the music again. We're heading into a break. Your calls are welcome here at 877-895-5410. What do you think about the markets today? What do you think about the election? What do you think about maybe stepping up and taking care of yourself? As Melody would say, don't be scared, be prepared with gold and silver. 877-895-5410 is the number to call. And Melody and Beth Ann, we're going to be right back.